Welcome back to the 123 show with me, Noreen Mayer, this afternoon. I'd like to introduce a very, very special guest in the studio with me. In the studio with me is Walter Choi. He is the co-founder of CARE ER, which stands for Care in Education and Recruitment. Walter, welcome to the program.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us. So tell us a little bit more about this very special, would you call it a social enterprise or a charity or an NGO?
Right now, actually, we have just registered as a charity with the IRD. So at that moment, I would call ourselves as a charity. And actually, we are still looking for a sustainable model to really run this forward. So we're still deciding whether we are a pure charity or social enterprise. So at that moment, we call ourselves as a charity.
So tell us a little bit more about your charity. It's a very, very cool concept.
So actually, CARE ER stands for Care Education and Recruitment. It is served as a community for tertiary higher educated students and graduates with disabilities. So something like a alumni association. So we do not want to be CARE, and that's why actually the name actually can be stand for a carer, to care somebody else. So actually, with our higher education and our social experience, so actually we can care other people, including myself. I'm a visually impaired person with less than 10% eyesight, but actually I have been to Goldman Sachs, UBS, and King & Wood Mountains, Jardines to work, and so that I founded this organization because I went through a very tough moment in universities and the transition from university to career. So that's why I wouldn't want my peer to run into every single battle with him or herself. So that's why I founded this organization with a couple of my friends, a UK policy researcher and a PhD student in building assessment, to found this organization to serve in this field.
And it's got a very cool name to it, CARE ER, which also spells career, and it stands for Care in Education and Recruitment. Walter, tell us a little bit. So who are the people you are predominantly serving? What kind of impairments or disabilities are the people who come to you?
Actually, because in Hong Kong, maybe I overlooked or whatever, but I haven't seen any organization actually to provide employer a one-stop talent pool. So that is the main reasons why we serve every people with special education needs. So including visual impairment, hearing impairment, physical disabilities, and other disabilities with some severe disease or long-term disease. We also include them into our pool. So actually, the corporate can come to us to look for the right talents with different body condition.
I see. So when you say they faced battles before your charity existed, what kinds of battles? Were these people sort of, how should I put it, not hireable? Were they just not being hired, or were they being overlooked, or maybe neglected?
So I would think that actually there are many passionate employer, including something like some investment bank, multinational companies. I have encountered them along my networking in the business community. They're really passionate, but they cannot find the right person because they do not have a one-stop point to find the talents. So that is the gap between those determined, assertive, and talented people with disabilities from the universities. So people need to run into a different networking opportunity to find a way out from the community to look for the job. So actually, for example, I found this organization because two things. I feel really lonely when I was in universities. At the moment, I was in one of the big three university, but I need to wait for a whole year, a whole freshman year, to have the equipment that I need for the lecture. But at the moment, I really wish to have peer to walk with me. And the second point is, when I was looking for a job, I actually absolutely panicked in the universities. I started to plan ahead about my career in my first year. And I went to Dialogue in the Dark, UBS, Goldman Sachs, King & Wood Melton. But eventually, I still find that I'm really tough to find a job. Many people actually look at my CV. They find, wow, Walter is really great and have a very good CV.
Absolutely. I have to say, guys, you guys, for our listeners listening, while you're listening to this interview, if you have some time, do go to Walter's personal website, www.walterchu, which is spelled TSUI.HK.
So the main reason is the people, the human resources people usually is having the first screen of the candidates. So they really welcome me to come to interview and listen to my inspiring story. But afterward, when come to decision, hey, shall we give Walter an opportunity, and they will find difficult to talk to their line manager. So they love to listen to my story, but come to practice, so they would kind of going back.
I take your point. What kinds of reservations have they given you? Have they told you, oh, the reason we haven't hired you is because we're worried, or do they just not even give an excuse? Because if they said anything, it would just be downright discrimination.
I think I would not go into discrimination in this context, because I believe they're looking for the right person, but just having lack of information. So that's why KRER, we're demonstrating, we are not excluding other level of education, but at the moment we wish to serve the higher educated people for that moment, because we need to set up role models to allow employers to understand, hey, those people with disability, just give them some minimal assistive technologies or minimal adjustment in the workplace. They can work normally as just a normal person, with really engaged and committed.
Yeah. Can you give us some examples of the people who you have helped, or the people who are coming to KRER for some sort of advice?
I have a very just 2 weeks ago, I know a person with a profound deaf. He is really passionate and he's really talented. I asked somebody to help me to look at his artwork, because he's a graphic design graduate, and he went through couples of the interview with himself, and many employers, just like what I have experienced, they listen to his inspiring story, but eventually, hey, you're hearing impaired, so we kind of hard to include you in the team because you cannot communicate, and he's quite depressed. But because Carrier founded a group of good employer, including multinational companies, and thank you so much to Cherry Picks. It's one of the biggest app developer in Hong Kong, and so we assigned a very experienced headhunter to be our volunteering account manager for that profound deaf students, and she helped me to guide the candidates and also talk to Cherry Picks about the talents and the things that they need to be aware of before the interview. So eventually they offered a permanent contract. Right now I think he is under probation period, and we're really excited. And at the moment I hear that good news, I almost cry.
I know, Walter, I'm really, really touched just hearing it. That's amazing. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about, from the employer's perspective, what sorts of reservations, or what are their main concerns of perhaps not hiring somebody with some sort of disabilities?
I think I would go into 2 points. One is hardware and one is software. Software means actually they are always looking for training. What is the best practice for for hiring disabilities, what is the best practice to work with people with disabilities? They kind of stop into, hey, we need more training, we need more training, go ahead and more training, but never really go to life, because the really good training is to have somebody to work with you with disabilities. So we promote internship because you will have clear duration of the people working with you, and you can understand about how powerful is the people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is hardware. They're always thinking, hey, how about when I'm hiring people with physical disabilities, hey, my floor do not have accessible toilets. How can we hire them? So please ask the person with disabilities to adjust, because we are higher educated. We can present and find a solution for you. Mm-hmm. So for example, when I was going to Goldman Sachs to work as an intern, they asked me, how can you go into escalator? Hey, no problem. I go there every day. Just simple. And next thing is the elevator, and they do not have they just have touch screen and all those, and I asked them just put a plastic tab next to the button I need, and I can just touch it. Just simple.
Yeah, it's because you're so positive. Now, Walter, I do want to pick your brain a little bit. Can I ask you, what are some practical tips that you can perhaps share with our listeners? Maybe somebody's listening has got some sort of disability, or maybe you know somebody with disability who's looking for a job. What kind of tips can you give these people when and if they go for job interviews?
Be honest, first of all, and please come to Career to have advice, because yes, actually we're working really hard to build a headhunters community to help you. So please prepare a elevator speech for 1 minute, because the interviewer actually do not quite patient about listening to your long story. So think about what is the key points that you can raise awareness. You can present yourself in 1 minute, and have your CV. Please be open to your disabilities with any. So you should be able to demonstrate how you overcome the challenges. It is the key points, instead of just hide your disabilities behind. Yep. And so if you have any questions, you can just drop me an email by info@career.org.hk.
Walter, I'm sure people will be emailing you as well. Now, can you tell us, apart from some tips for candidates as well, can you share with us, maybe some of us are working with people with disabilities. How can we go about talking with them or asking them about their disability? Is it rude to ask them to tell us more? Is it rude to see if they need our help? Because people, I believe in the good in people, and naturally people want to help other people if they feel like they need our help. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I think this is my expectation for myself and my organization founded Career. So I think people, if they want to communicate with people with disabilities, just be open to ask, because me myself, and I will expect to my members as well. And if you want to have a good career, not just employment, a career is a lot longer. You have to be able to face yourself. You have to be honest to yourself that you have some limitation. Just as you and me, and Noreen, I'm sure you will have some limitation in life as well as I do.
So many more than you imagine. And also in Chinese, there's a saying called "yut bong yut mong." So I'm actually genuinely worried. How should I translate "yut bong yut mong"? The more I help, the more
trouble.
Exactly. And I think sometimes there is that fear of, what if we're trying to help, but we're actually making the situation worse for the person? Do you ask them, is what I'm doing helping you, or is what I'm doing making it worse? Can you actually ask?
Yes, I think the best suggestion is to ask the candidate or to your colleagues with disabilities to think about what can we help, or what shouldn't we help? Because people with disabilities also want to demonstrate our talents. Actually, sometimes, for example, when people ask me, and can you work mobily? I would worry about the colleagues would prevent me to work mobily on the street, or to ask me to go out to meet with clients. But I can tell you, with the technologies like smartphone, I can just type on my WhatsApp, my email, on my way, on train, on bus, just like what I've contacted you, Noreen. I've dropped you WhatsApp, email, and telephone to ensure I was out there in RTHK.
Absolutely. You know, Walter, when we spoke on the phone yesterday, and then when you sent me your email, and then I read up about you, and I was honestly, the question I had in my mind was, how on earth is he typing such a great email? How is he WhatsApping me? And can you share with us how is it that you're doing it? Is it with the speech recognition, or how is it that you're using your smartphone?
So actually, right now, even though it's iOS or Android, they do have built-in screen reading software. So everybody's phone can turn on a screen reader. So I'm using that. So whatever my finger touched, the phone would tell me what is going on underneath. So I just use that function to read the WhatsApp, and also I use a Bluetooth keyboard to help me to type. So just like people normal.
Absolutely. And more from Walter after the 2:30 news. Very quickly, the weather forecast for this afternoon and tonight. Mainly cloudy and dry. It'll be sunny in the next few days and still cold tomorrow. Right now, the yellow 5-day... I'm sure our listeners will want to hear a little bit about your story as well. How did you become visually impaired? At what age? And what happened?
So actually, I think according to the doctor saying, I born with my eyes with some cone cell and rock cell different from others. So the cells would deteriorate along the time. So when I was born, I have around 40% eyesight. But along with public exam, universities, and I work in different places, so I deteriorate along the time. Right now, I have less than 10% eyesight. That's why I'm using my guide dog as well.
Yeah. At any point of your life, did you ever feel, well, life is really unfair, and you just thought, well, why am I doing everything that I'm doing?
I think if the listener just come to my website to look at what I've achieved with my visual impairment, I think I me myself inspired by my visual impairment as well. That's why since my second higher secondary school, I work really hard to ensure I'm doing well in academic, and also my extracurricular activities. I went to United States with a exchange program with AFS to stay with a whole brand new environment, so ensure I can be independent. So I think I inspired by my visual impairments.
Absolutely. I'm inspired by you as well. Just briefly looking at your CV, you received the highest score in your public exam in secondary school. You studied German, you're learning Japanese as well, and you do Wing Chun, and obviously you played basketball and all these sports. I think it's such an inspiration. What about the role of your family and the role of your friends along the way?
It is really important because I still always having the statement. My mom told me that when the doctor told my mom, hey, these kids actually have visual impairment and cannot be fixed by surgery. And the doctor next sentence would be, hey, this kids, he can do anything except flying, driving an airplane. So my mom was so inspired and just treat me as a normal kid. My older brother just always take me to basketball field, to basketball court, to play with other kids, and yell at me when I'm not performing well. Just like normal, and kind of crazy looking back. But when I hurt myself in sport, my mom, hey, why you hurt yourself? Hey, take care of yourself, please. Something like that. But I grow up in this environment, and it make me so independent and have the initiative for going forward.
Walter, I'm so inspired by you. I could really talk to you all afternoon, honestly. There's still so many questions I'd like to ask you now. Generally speaking, can I ask, is Hong Kong an easy place to get around if you're visually impaired? Is Hong Kong, we hear reports that Hong Kong has actually not got such good facilities and in terms of barrier access and whatnot. From your experience of growing up and living in Hong Kong, what are your thoughts of getting around and walking around in Hong Kong?
I think I can divide it into software and hardware again. So I think the hardware is excellent. It's really impressive. I can tell you because I have been to United States. I have been to Germany to have summer course. I also went to Japan with myself. So I noticed that none of the countries that I went to have every single traffic light have sound like Hong Kong. And Hong Kong has so many different guide paths, the tactile guide path on the way. It is so impressive. But I think along with this advancement on hardware, I think the software is more important because I think Hong Kong people still have a lot of prejudgment on disabilities. When I using my white skin looking for help in Star Ferry, no one really proactively come to me, and I yell a couple of times, and still no one come to me. And I'm kind of impressed because in Hong Kong, such a good hardware city, but the software, the mindset of people still lagging behind. Include something like, for example, I went to the United States. So I tell the teacher that I want to join a soccer team. They, hey, why not? Come along. But in Hong Kong, the teacher would doubt, hey, you have visual impairment. How would you like to join the soccer team?
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Sometimes I wonder, is it because Hong Kong people are more shy? So even if they see people needing help, no matter what it is, even if it's, say, tourists lost in TST, people won't really help them. Why do you think that is? Is it just the culture of Hong Kong people?
I think Hong Kong people is just like when sometimes I feel the same way as well because the life pressure is too tough in Hong Kong. Sometimes so fast. I'm running to next meeting, and hey, somebody else would help them instead of myself. But I think the Hong Kong people is so stressful, and the other countries definitely people work a lot slower than in Hong Kong.
Absolutely. Oh, Walter, it's been such a great afternoon chatting with you. I will see you again next week, I believe, because you're going to be showing me the new training center for guide dogs as well. So we'll leave it at this for today, but we will hear more from Walter Chu next week on the 123 show. Walter, thank you so much, and tell our audience, how can we find out more about